Hi, this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing or responding to a request from one of my subscribers. So I'm excited to, or from a few of my subscribers. I'm excited to help with this. A while back we did a series of replicas from It's a Small World. Different panels from the front portion of It's a Small World, and there were 3 of them that I did and used in my album but did not do videos on. Today my intention is to go ahead and do those panels for you and explain how they come together, and hopefully it won't take too long. If I notice that time is running too long, then we may have to break it up and do them at different times, but in a different video. But let me see how it goes. I'm hoping I can get all 3 of them done for you in this one video, and that way you can use them. And maybe we might do something fun with them at the end, so stay tuned. Let's check out my workspace and get started. Alright, you may recall we did this panel. This was the first panel that we did, the clock tower. And then we skipped this one, and we skipped these 2. But we did this one, and we did these 2. Okay, so these 3 are in videos already, and this one is in a video already. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these 2 pages. What I have available, or what I have in front of me, is a 12 by 12 piece of white cardstock, and then just a bunch of scraps, really, of white shimmer paper and gold shimmer paper, and this geometric shimmer that came with a geometric paper pack that I had. I'm going to cut 3 pieces that are 2 inches wide. Actually, now that I say that and I check, these are actually 2.5 inches wide. So the cardstock base is 2.5 inches wide, so we're going to cut 3 of those. So if these do tend to take a little while because of all the paper piecing. Oh, and I'm going to keep my trimmer fairly handy because, as you can see, there are lots of little pieces with this, and we are going to be cutting quite a bit. Just to do this first one, I did a lot of measuring and dividing up the 12-inch piece to try to accommodate different sections. Each of these is a different section that's just sort of added together to make the 12 inches. And that made it a little bit easier for me to decipher how I was going to do this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut a piece from white shimmer that is 3 inches by 2 3/4. Make that 2 1/4. 3 by 2 1/4. Okay, so I'm going to find a piece of white that's going to be close to that, and we're going to see if that is, so that's 3 inches wide right there. Perfect. So then I can just cut it at 2 1/4 this way. Okay, and then that will be the base for this piece. I'm going to go ahead and put this on. We're going to use a variety of permanent adhesive and repositionable adhesive. Now when I adhere this to the base, I'm adhering it flush to the bottom, so straight edge to straight edge at the bottom, and centering it between the edges so that I have a border of the white cardstock around the outside. So shimmer paper on the inside, cardstock on the outside. And the gold piece that goes in the middle is going to be roughly the same size. So that is the same width already. So we just need this to be slightly shorter. So it was this is 3 inches high, so we're going to go 2 1/4. Maybe let's go 2 1/4 plus a 1/16. I'm not sure what that is to be able to tell you, but I don't think I need a full 1/8 of an inch. That's not a full 1/8 of an inch. That's more like 1 1/2/16 border around the edge, so that's what I'm going to go with. Okay, and actually though, if those were moved in, no, you know what, I'm sorry, this is so much trial and error, but really I did just sit down and play with the paper until it was the size I wanted and then put it on here, so this is going to be a little bit tricky. Okay, so now we're starting with a piece that is 2 3/4 by 2 1/4 inches, 2 1/4 by 2 3/4. That's what this is. Okay, now we're going to take this gold piece and we're going to lay it corner to corner and cut it into triangles, which will be easy for you because your trimmer is probably, your mat strip has probably got that groove in it already. I don't have that because, like I said, I just switched mine. So we're going to do the best we can. Alright, and instead of putting these together somehow, what I'm going to do is just rotate this around, try to keep my edges together, and then cut it again from this corner to this corner so that we have an X in the middle of our gold paper. And I'm just going to hold it so that it stays, it doesn't move around. Okay, so now we've got 4 pieces, and those are these 4 pieces that are going to go right here. I'm going to do the outside pieces first, and they're going to overlap just a smidgen. So we're going to use our repositionable adhesive. And as I typically do, I always want to flip it over. There's no reason to flip it over though, because it's exactly the same on both sides. So it's kind of silly. Okay, I'm going to put this just barely, maybe 1/16 of an inch in from the edge, and just center it on the shimmer paper. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with this side. 1/16 from the edge in, and then centering it. Okay, then we're going to take each of these and add them. Okay, we need to trim a little bit off. So I was wrong, and we should have gone with the shorter measurement. I'm going to cut 1/8 of an inch off of the wide end of each of these triangles so that it fits properly. It still gives us a border around the outside, and then we can also see the white through the middle. So that's not much of a border around the outside, but it'll suffice for now. I think I cut that a little crooked, as you can see, which is not too surprising, given that cutting such a tiny little thing can sometimes shift. So like I've said before, the idea with these is to try to be as precise as you can, but that's not always possible, so we just do the best we can, right? Alright, that one's better. Alright, now this next piece, this next section here is actually popped up on some foam squares, and you can see it is a 2 inch, 2 1/4 by 2 inches. That's what we need. So I think I can get that out of this one right here. So we're going to go with 2 1/4, or let's just do 2 inches. Doesn't really matter with this piece of scrap. I don't think I can get much more out of that, but we'll see. So we did 2 inches. Now we're going to cut it at 2 1/4. Alright, and now this is the base piece. Now I need a piece of, oh wow, that fits it perfect. Like I actually meant that to go there. This inset piece with the gold geometric shapes is going to be 2 inches by 1 3/4. Okay, so 2 by 1 3/4 is going to fit directly inside 2 by 2 1/4. Okay, and we're going to, first we're going to adhere it just using some repositionable adhesive because it was handy and I happened to grab it. You can use whichever makes you happy. Okay, we're going to adhere it like that. Then I'm going to grab my foam squares. So I'm just going to add a foam square to each corner of this to lift it up and give it a little dimension. Okay, so then this is going to go right above the other, and I usually just leave it's the tiniest little bit of a gap. You don't want to leave a ton, but enough that there can be a shadow right between those 2 sections. Now we're going to grab white shimmer again. And I need another piece 2 inches high by 2 1/4 inches wide. Okay, so we've got 2 inches high, and you can't see it, but I have a cut into this piece, so that just needs to go away. And we need, I also have a notch out of this corner, so 2 1/4 inches wide. It's going to be right there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make this really cool filigree portion. And that's going to go on this base right here. Now the filigree portion is made by using your gold, a piece of gold shimmer, and I'm just looking for a little bit wider piece. Piece that I don't have to worry so much about where it's at. And this is the fleur-de-lis. I think it was a fleur-de-lis. I think it was called the fleur-de-lis. And this is a frame punch, but we're just going to cut one piece out of it. So what I want to do is I want to take my gold shimmer, and I'm just barely going to put it inside inside my frame, so the top edge is right on the edge of the square area. Okay, and then I get that. So I'm going to just do that twice, and with this one I'm going to put the bottom edge on the squared out area. Okay, so now I have these two. Now this is a little bit of fussy cutting, so for those of you who don't enjoy fussy cutting, I apologize. Okay, we're going to come in here with our scissors and we're going to cut these. Now first I'm going to go ahead and just trim this off just to make it a little easier for me to manage, because my hands sometimes don't enjoy, well, fussy cutting is stressful anyway, but sometimes my hands tend to shake, and so it's just a little easier if I don't have as much body of paper to work with. I'm going to start right over here on the edge, and you can see the width that you have with these, with the rest of the punch. So I'm just kind of following that as a guide and cutting around trying to make it that same width. Okay, so there's one. Now we're going to do the same thing with this one. Going to turn it around and start from the same side, same direction. Glad I'm not shaking today. Sometimes I have a little bit of a tremor in my hands, and that makes fussy cutting like this a little bit more of an adventure when you have a tremor. Okay, so now we have these two pieces. What I'm going to do is take some repositionable adhesive and put across much of, if not all of, one side of each of those. I think they look like fleur-de-lis. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's what they look like. I'm going to kind of join up those center pieces. They're not going to match exactly, but you can make the points here in the center match and then feel reasonably good about the rest of it. Because it is the same color paper, it all tends to blend together, so it's not too big of a deal. And then we're going to center this on our square the best we can. Okay, so just like that. Then we're going to go ahead and mount this right above the square we just did, leaving just a little bit of a gap, but lining up the edges so that the sides on either side are the same. Now the next section, if we use our zero centering ruler, you can see the next section is going to be 3 inches high, and we're still going to be 2.25 inches wide. Right? Okay, so 2.25 inches wide and 3 inches high, and we need our white shimmer paper again. And I'm just going to cut a whole column at 2.25 inches because we know we'll need it again. All right, so 2.25 and 3 inches. There we go. Yeah, okay. So there's our base for the next section. Now we need some gold. So I'm going to locate those gold strips that I had that were the right dimension. There we go. Okay, and we're going to do some trimming on this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this at 2 7/8 high, okay, because we don't need it to go all the way down. 2 7/8 high, and I'm going to trim 1/8 inch off of it, so it'll be 1 7/8, or excuse me, 2 1/8 wide. Okay, that's going to allow me to have my boundaries on the edge as I'm going to cut this in half. Okay, so we know it's 2 1/8 wide, so that means that each side's going to have at least 1 inch plus a 1/16. So that should center my gold piece. 1 1/16 on either side of my cutting line. We're going to cut down the center. We're going to stack them. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a pencil real quick, and on this top one I'm going to do my best to center it, to find the center of it. So The trick here is that it's a little wider than an inch. So finding the middle is just a little bit tricky. Okay, so there's my middle. So now what I'm going to do is come in here and cut from that point to the outside edge. Okay, so holding my paper so it doesn't shift. I'm going to start in the middle and cut to the point. And my paper shifted. Dad, blast it. Okay, so that's not good. I'm going to have to start over because the piece that I want is this outside piece and it didn't cut correctly. So I'm sorry about that. Let me start over. So instead of 3 inches, we're going 2 7/8, cutting it in half. Oh, I needed to cut 1/8 of an inch off too. Or thereabouts. That doesn't quite look like 1/8 of an inch, but it's okay. Alright, we're gonna just center this. Let's try doing them one at a time instead of doing them stacked. And I'm just going to eyeball the middle because I feel like I can do that okay. Alright, so that was much better. So there's one piece. Then we're going to flip it over and do the same thing from the center to the corner closest to us. Okay, and that is our other corner. Now we're going to take this piece. I'm going to save this triangle. We might need it for another one of the layouts. I can't remember for sure, so just in case, we're going to save it. All right. There's another corner. We're going to flip this over and we're going to cut that. Okay, now each of these 4 pieces we need to adhere. So we are going to take our base. I have this popped up, and so I'm just not going to put any adhesive out there on the edge, on the tip. I'm going to put foam squares as far down as I can, where they'll still fit, and then just leave the rest not adhered. Okay. Then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to line this up with a little bit of a white border and adhere that down. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the other one that goes on the outside. So it's almost like we're making curtains. This one, I just realized I put the foam squares on the wrong side. So, okay, I need that to go there. We'll save that other one for just a second while I get this one put down so I can see where it's going to go. You can see how some of these sections of these columns take a little bit of extra time, love, and attention than the others. So that one goes there, and then this one goes right next to it. And ideally they should go straight down. This one didn't quite go straight down, so I'm going to see if I can. The benefit of using shimmer paper for this is that it is a little bit more forgiving if you need to reposition something, like I am needing to reposition this one. Because you really do want that center piece to go straight as you can. Okay, so if you're off, just take it off and start again. Okay, this piece up here, so put it over. And our foam squares in the right place. Alright, and then this particular piece has gems on it, so I'm going to grab this, and we're going to place, if you don't do gems, then you'll maybe need to just find something, maybe you can punch a round piece or something from your gold paper to go in the middle right here. Okay, so there's our two center pieces. Now we're going to come in here and adhere this. We probably should have added our adhesive before we added our gems. I didn't think about that. Sometimes it's hard to add gems after you have added add adhesive after you've added bumpy gems. Okay. So now I'm just leaving, again, just barely a little bit of space between the two, so you can see that there's two separate blocks there. And there we go. Now, this last block at the top is a triangle that we cut out of the base paper. So we're going to line this up on our mat and find the middle, or use a ruler and find the middle. I'm going to go ahead and move it out here to more of a ruler edge, right? Okay, so we've got 2.5 inches. Half is going to be 1 1/4, so it's going to be right there. So I just put a little tick mark, barely a tick mark at all, and I'm going to imagine my outside edge being just barely ahead of where that white shimmer paper is. Okay, so I'm going to place that centered spot right on my cutting line, and imagine where it's going to cut off being right above the top of this block. This is a lot like quilting. Okay, then just cut it. And we're going to do it upside down, and the same way. This point on the center line, and just do your very best. You could draw a line if you wanted to make sure that those points were completely balanced and even, and that would be fine too. Okay, so we've got those two. Now we need to cut these triangles. What I did was I cut, so this last piece right here is roughly 1 3/4 inches high. So I cut 1 3/4 inches by 2 1/4 inches. Okay, so there's my total. And then if I was to go ahead and cut, and this is shimmer paper, okay, so this would fit right over the top if it was, and it's even with my shimmer paper column, portion of my column, right? So we are going to make this into a triangle. So it's 2 1/4. So we're going to find the center. Sometimes if I don't want to measure, I just try to make the overlap the same and then find the middle. So that's another quick, easy way to do it if you don't have to be exact. We're not going to really be able to tell if this is exact, so I'm not going to worry. Alright, so I'm going to just make a quick triangle. This triangle is going to fit inside the shape of our base triangle. You can see how it fits just perfectly inside. Okay, so now, and I do need to erase that little mark at the top of that one and this one. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is decide where the halfway mark is. Okay, so this is 1 3/4 from tip to flat edge. So 1 3/4 in half is going to be 5/8. So I'm going to move the flat edge up to halfway between 3/4 and 1 inch. Okay, that's going to be my half mark. There's a lot of geometry involved in this. Now you can use this piece and you can glue this piece on as well if you want to. I chose to leave it off. I don't really remember the reason. I don't know if it was because I misplaced this triangle or if it was because I just thought it would be kind of nice to leave it off. But that's just what I did. And then I'm going to find the center of the long side of the triangle. I'm going to mark it real quick, and then we're going to make the alternate triangles. Now, what we could do also is cut a piece of gold, and this is going to help make this a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm going to cut a piece of gold that is 7/8 inch wide, same as our piece of white shimmer. Okay, then I'm going to just use my repositionable adhesive and tape these together. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that so that when I cut these outside triangles, the outside edge triangles, the center triangle will already be cut, and then I don't have to fiddle with it, because definitely that would be tiny to fiddle with. Okay, so I'm going to cut from the center marking that I made on the long flat edge to the outside corner, upper corner of the white. Okay, this gives us our lower right piece, that piece right there, and this is a throwaway piece. Then we're going to flip this over and we're going to cut from the mark that we made. That's going to go on the cutting line, and the outside edge on the other side, outside to upper edge on the other side. This one's going to be harder to hold on to. And do our best. Okay, we're going to cut slowly so that our paper doesn't shift. If you're worried about your paper shifting, you can glue it down temporarily. Okay, there's our other outside white triangle. Another piece of gold that can just go away. And then this is the center gold piece. And we can take the, we can take it apart and take that white piece off the back if it bothers you, or you can just leave it on, whatever makes you happy. Okay, so those are going to go on just like that. And I'm going to use foam squares to put them on. because that will add some shadows and some depth again. Okay, so we're going to use, these are 1/2 inch foam square pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and put the top piece on this one. I know I didn't do it on mine, but I think I honestly can't remember why I didn't do it on mine, but that's all right. So this one's going to go right here on the top, just barely set in from the edge, right? Then I'm gonna do the gold piece next. And that's glued to, or adhered to a white piece, remember? Okay. Here's my center marking. So I'm going to put the center marking going down and make the opposite edge line up. Not exactly, again, we're leaving just a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of a gap right there. Need another foam square. Okay. One more. How are we doing for time? Ooh. Yeah, see, as soon as you get into these that take a little bit more detail work, the time just slips right by. So I think we are going to end up separating this and doing the others in a separate video. All right, so there is our first one. All right, I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope you'll tune in for the other 2 columns that we're going to do. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time, I hope you have many more creative moments. Have a great day now.